program. Good morning to you both. Thank you so much for being here.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
Mr. Clarence, such an interesting story, and I do want to talk about it in a bit, but first, D.A. Williams, while we have you here, you're here in the midst of a major conversation here in New Orleans over what to do with the juvenile monitoring program. This week, there was a city council hearing where we saw from members of the city council calling for some change there and ways to use $4.5 million in unspent federal funding. That, too, is its own debate over what to do with that money. First, we'll just start with your take on this trial program that you and other members of the city council are a part of, and when we might see that being implemented. What's the status of it?
It was supposed to be implemented by the mayoral's administration 2 years ago when the money was allocated. Those ARPA dollars have to be spent within a certain period of time, so it's important that we move quickly. We sent legislation that we've been working on with industry leaders to the city council, to President Moreno, who's been leaning in hard on this. So we're hopeful to get that legislation presented at the next council meeting, or at least at the council meeting after that, or the next committee meeting. Also working with AG Morrell to make sure that we have a statewide solution dealing with the sort of post-conviction side of this. End of the day, if a juvenile is released on an ankle monitor from custody, someone has to be looking at that little dot on that satellite to know where he is or where she is in the city. And if they're not at home and they're supposed to be at home, they need to be remanded back into custody. And hopefully we can get this in place in very short order. It was supposed to be in order 2 years ago. Federal money has been sitting. So now everyone is moving expeditiously from the city council to the AG's office to make sure we have solutions in place.
To that point, Tanisha Stevens, the criminal justice coordinator, said that she didn't know anything about this trial program. We actually, as a matter of fact, have a soundbite from this week's session. Let's take a listen to it.
I didn't know anything about it, but I'm happy, as I've always stated before in every email that I've sent, I'm happy to discuss, I'm happy to talk if I'm invited to the table.
So again, she says that they didn't know about it, but you say that this conversation's been in place for 2 years.
Deeply frustrating, because there's also news coverage from 2 years ago where she's claiming ownership of the program, where the mayor's claiming ownership of the program, and they all say, we're going to make this better than the program that existed under the Landrieu administration, describing aspects and details of the program. So at some point they decided not to do it without telling city council, without telling DA's office, without telling juvenile court judges, and the money just sat at a time when the Surgeon General said that our kids would be struggling most. So that's deeply frustrating to see her now say, I didn't know it was there. I mean, the way I grew up, $4 million is a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
And if the city had to return $4 million back to the federal government because it went unspent, that would be a sin and a shame, and I don't think it's something the city could recover from.
Well, and that is the risk right now. We do risk losing that money. So what happens next in terms of possibly getting this program implemented?
Well, we've got to move at the speed of light to get it in place, which means probably using a local company that's already has a program stood up that could start day one of the contract.
Okay, let's move on now. I know, because we're here to talk about the exhibit. Thank you so much for your patience, Mr. Williams.